Holy smokes. We are live. Welcome to College Football's Peek Around the Corner with your host, Greg Pflugar. We cover everything in college football because we love everything in college football. And if you do as well, please subscribe to our channel. Smash the like button if you like our content. If you want to support this Rebel Outpost College Football YouTube channel, just put a comment in where you hit the $sign and we'll get to your super chat as quick as I can. Welcome into the studio that sits on the corner of Keith Jackson Parkway and Kurt Gowdy Avenue. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid to be a legend in the chat room. Phone calls later in the show. Breaking news. The 4 auto bids that the Big Ten and the SEC were shooting for, but we said it on a live show today, yesterday, the day before. They're willing to go to 3 if they get something back in return, which I think they're going to. But really, the big story tonight, there's a 14-team playoff working model. Still think it's going to jump to 16, but maybe it won't. Maybe that's the part of the story that PATC is going to have to take the L, because I'm looking at you, Notre Dame. I don't quite understand what's in it for Notre Dame. We'll get to what we're going to get to that. 14-team working model, according to Ross Dellinger, Yahoo Sports, with the Big 12 and the ACC both get 2 automatic bids. 2 each. Now, does that, again, this is the working model. It's not official, but it does have some traction. We're going to go through the Ross Dellinger article. I want to hear your comments in the chat room. I want you to give us a call. This is big news. The G5, man, I got a lot to say. The G5 looks like they're going to get their spot, which I've wanted for them to have their spot. This doesn't look like a breakaway. Right? All the people who said there was going to be this breakaway Power 2. We know there's a Power 2 when it comes to power, influence, money. It's been that way. It keeps growing that way. But a breakaway, doesn't look like it's happening. Not now, maybe 8 years down the road. But not now. This doesn't look like the Big 12 is a G5 conference. Genetics 56, Tony Altamore, and the rest of you. It doesn't look like the ACC is considered a G5. It looks like we are on the verge of a 14-team playoff. Still think it's going to get to 16. But that is the working model. Breaking news. Brett Yormark, Jim Phillips might have given, this could be a very good night for the Big 12 ACC schools and institutions. If this is getting traction, and it's sure like it is. Now, I have a question. I have a lot of questions. 2-team out of berth ACC. Does that mean that the 2 teams that finish the top 2 go automatically, right? There may not be a conference championship game. We talked about it a few days ago with our own information. They just have the top 2 rated conference champions to have the first round bye. Remember, the SEC in the Big Ten, they want to keep that in there. But that was to supposedly incentivize conference championship games. I don't know where the CCGs stand at this point. Let me know where you think they stand. But the top 2 ACC schools, the top 2 Big 12 schools. Very, very interesting. And then before we get to the article, I mean, the way it stands now, in an 18-team Big Ten, 16-team SEC, 16-team Big 12, 18-team ACC, without Notre Dame, of course. There are going to be years, there are going to be seasons where the Big Ten's going to have, there's going to be a lot of competition at the top of these conferences. What if you have, in more conference games, remember the SEC is most likely going to bump up to 9 conference games, especially if they have 3 automatic bids. They can afford to have more conference games, bring in more money, more eyeballs. If you can have a season where the top 2 Big Ten teams are 11-1, tiebreaker if you don't have the CCG, one is number 1, one is number 2, and the third place team is 8-4. And they're ranked 17th in the country. You might have 4 8-4 Big Ten teams. You might have 4, and again, it's a conference record. You might have a third place Big Ten team that went 7-2, but 1-2 in their non-conference games. There might be 8-4. They might be ranked 17th, but they get in before Notre Dame. Same with the second place Big 12, second place ACC, third place SEC. Somebody's going to have to convince me in the chat, in the PATC community. Someone's going to have to convince me that this somehow is, I don't know what the word to use. Equitable? Equitable? Is that the right word? Give me a word. How does Notre Dame... Now remember, they don't need Notre Dame's vote to get to this change. Notre Dame does not have the veto pen. If Brett Yormark is jumping with this model, if Jim Phillips is jumping in, if Sankey and Petteo are jumping in, if Steinbrecher is jumping in, if Oresko's jumping in, if the G5s and Total are jumping in, Notre Dame can't stop it. What part of this is advantageous to Notre Dame at all? Especially if they get rid of the conference championship games. Notre Dame, at least we don't have to play a conference championship game. So if this, again, we're going to get to the article. I promise you. I've got to let this out. I'm going to let you all get it out of your system as well. But for Notre Dame, you don't have a chance. If you stay independent, you don't have a chance. Most likely. Because they're going to have it be the top-rated conference champions. Most likely, Notre Dame is not going to be able to get a bye. They're not going to be able to be seeded 1 and 2. In Notre Dame's great seasons, yes, they're going to make it. But they're on the edge seasons. They're not going to have as big as window as a top Big 10 team, as a top Big 12 team, as a top ACC team. They're just not. There's more bites to the apple for Kansas, for West Virginia, for Cincinnati, for Duke. I don't know how this works for Notre Dame. And then, I don't know, unless there's some special carve-out where Notre Dame's going to make a whole lot of money if they make the playoffs. More than a Duke, more than a West Virginia, more than a Cincinnati, more than a miracle shot Purdue Boilermakers. I don't, because if as a conference, if you get 3 teams in there, you advance, your conference piles up money that gets distributed. Unless there is a certain special, humongous revenue carve-out for Notre Dame, how do they support this? And they might not support it. But what are they going to do about it? They don't have the veto pen anymore. This does not need a unanimous vote. The Big 12, the ACC, the Big 10, the SEC. Look, I don't know if this is going to work. But what they're trying to do is they're trying to have their regular season, their conference races, their conference games be as important as possible. The at-large bids, that comes into play with the out-of-conference scheduling. Win your big out-of-conference game, and you're going to have another bite at the apple when it comes to at-large bids. But the conference games are everything. Get into the top 2 spots. Get into the top 3 spots. And then the G5. I'm going to get to the G5, and then we're going to get to Ross Dellinger. G5, the automatic bid. I think that needs to, I think that is best for the game. And I hope that part of it gets across the finish line. I hope all of this gets across the finish line. But let's get to Ross Dellinger. But I got to say thank you for everybody who's jumped on in. This is an emergency PATC live show. I said earlier today in our live show, we're not going to have a live show tonight. The wife and I are busy, going to be driving around. I'm going to be the chauffeur. She says she's cooking. She's cooking all through the night for a special brunch tomorrow that we're having at the home. So she says she's not going anywhere. Breaking news, Ross Dellinger. I ran into the studio, and you all, I appreciate you all so much. You've come in. Appreciate it. Jared Jones, Mr. Buckeye. Rock and Rant, college football's doubleheader. Mr. Hurricane is in the house. Preseason champions, Minnesota Seminoles. There's quite a few Seminoles in the state of Minnesota. There's quite a few Seminole fans. Anyways, Cameron B. Rock Chalk, Jayhawk. I called it. Cameron B. Anthony's in the house. John Bennett, Lewis. It sounds as if the grand bargain was 2 spots for ACC. Big 12 in exchange for a format where the SEC and the Big 10 in most years earn the 2 buys. I think the SEC and the Big 10 have to earn that, right? We'll see. Lewis, the grand bargain, it looks like it might have happened. Joe just woke up from my nap just in time. Jamie Thornton is in the house. Laura Weiss, Texas Tech, Red Raider. Bo Lewis is in the house. Charlie Atwood, Penn State, is here. Caleb Ramirez. He thinks both schools are going to get 4 schools in. We'll watch later. Go to church now. Michael M., crazy times in college football. Curtis Brown, good afternoon. Lewis says it won't go to 16. It won't go to 16. Daniel Montcastle here for the news. Mr. Hoosier, Bill G. Anthony Carlson is in the house. What's ticking now? A Dellinger dropped a bomb. Dellinger dropped a bomb, and we're going to be covering Whoa Nelly Juan Carlos. Illini Ted is in the house. Cago is in the house. Allen is in the house. Holy smokes, a lot of people coming on in at the beginning of the show. Roy McNamara, CCGs will be inside the CFP. I don't think so. I get where you're going with that. A lot of people want that to happen. I don't think the Big Ten wants to eliminate a Big Ten team in the first round unless it's part of the overall playoff. I do not think there's going to be conference tournaments leading up to the playoffs. Not in 2026 to 2032. Could that happen in the future? Could. It could. Mike Oresco is retiring. That is correct. D5 Terps. Holy smokes. Zach Mock is in the house. David M. Good question. We're going to be talking about Notre Dame. I think a lot of people are going to be talking about Notre Dame tonight, tomorrow, the next day. To me, I don't know what the word, I don't know what it is. What is that word that I'm looking for? None of this is advantageous for an independent Notre Dame football program. Tell me I'm wrong. Let me know what I've got wrong here. Reese, glad I made it. If I need to keep my notifications on. Everybody keep their notifications on. We could come on live at any time. Coy's in the house. Sky is in the house. King Spleen is in the house. The ACC had to negotiate for 2 teams. The creation of the CFP, they've had 2 teams finish in the top 12 once. I'm telling you. Obstinate. Lewis. I'm telling you. This is correct. They're again, the fat guy from Minnesota is not smart enough to be able to communicate what I'm thinking here. Look, you can, again, tell me I'm wrong in the chat. We're going to open up the phone lines after we go through the Dellinger article. Because maybe I'm missing something here, okay? There are going to be times in this scenario, very easily, in my opinion, that either the second place ACC team or the second place Big 12 team or the third place Big 10 team or the second place Big 10 team or the third place SEC team are going to finish the season lower ranked than Notre Dame, but they get in and Notre Dame has to fight over at the large spots. These conferences are going to be more competitive than they were before. One, the expansion, Big 10, big brands, SEC bringing in Oklahoma and Texas, the Big 12, with the NIL transfer rules, there's going to be records. They're not going to be shiny. I don't have no problem with that. I don't have no problem with the team making the playoffs 8-4, 9-3. I don't. I'm just saying there's going to be teams that are going to make it through an auto bid over Notre Dame or UConn's the other independent team. There's so many reasons why the independent route doesn't work, and it's now more than ever. Notre Dame, are they supporting this? Because if they are, if they want to keep their football independence and they're supporting this, it doesn't make any sense to me. But there is a chance that they're not in favor of this, but it's going to happen anyway because they don't have the veto pen. Or Notre Dame has 1 foot out the door. I know there's been reports from people. They're always talking to the Big Ten. I don't see any nugget of information there that I can really attach to myself. We're always poking and prodded on Notre Dame, as you all know. But man, this is huge. This is absolutely huge. Let's get to the article. Ladies and gentlemen, hold on. I'm sorry. I apologize here. Hold on, everybody. Hold on. I want to thank Coy, gifted 1 peek around the corner Cloak and Dagger membership. Holy smokes. Thank you, Coy, once again. He's gifted a membership. Coy, once again, you are knighted Cloak and Dagger. And of course, I put the wrong music on because it's pure chaos in the studio. Emergency live show. You are hereby knighted, Coy. Thank you so much for your generosity. Who was the PATC member who picked up that membership? Who was it? Let me know. It was Jamie Thornton. Jamie Thornton, you are once again knighted Cloak and Dagger. Mrs. Arkansas Razorback, congratulations. Okay, thank you, Coy. Thank you so much for your generosity. Let's get to. We have got so much going on. I know there's reports. People are sending me stuff. I will get to it in a moment. Ross Dellinger drops bomb. Dellinger drops bomb. Sources, CFP circulating new 14-team model to include 3 automatic spots for the Big 10 and the SEC, 2 for the ACC and the Big 12. One of the potential models for a new college football playoff may be emerging in a format being socialized. He likes to use that phrase. So Dellinger has used that phrase before. It means more than speculation. Gaining traction. People are negotiating on this track. Socializing. Everybody's trying to get comfortable with it. I don't know how Notre Dame gets comfortable with it, but we'll get back to that later. In a format being socialized among major conference administrators, the Big Ten and the SEC would each receive 3 automatic qualifiers in a 14-team field. with the ACC and the Big 12 getting 2 each, and a group of 5 best team qualifying as well. Such a model would feature 3 at-large spots to the highest ranked teams outside of the automatic qualifiers. Those briefed on the format discussed its details with Yahoo Sports. They don't want anybody to know, right? They don't want anybody to know who the sources are, cloak and dagger. They caution that the proposed model is nowhere near finalized. It's being socialized, but it's not finalized. And it's not the only format option that emerged from a meeting last week. CFP Management Committee, an 11-member group encompassing the 10 FBS commissioners and Notre Dame's athletic director. However, this 3-3-2-2-1 format, I would call it 3-3-2-2-1-3 under the 14 team, 3 at-large bids. 3 Big 10, 3 SEC, 2 Big 12, 2 ACC, 1 G5. However, this 3-3-2-2-1 format is being socialized among athletic administrators. Usually one of the initial steps in the process of adopting a model. The format would start in 226 as part of the CFP Television's contract. In 2024, in 25, the 12-team field format is set. We know about that. The 3-3-2-2-1 format is not surprising. Commissioners discussed a variety of new expansion models at last week's meeting, most of them that expand the 12-team field to 14 and grant multiple automatic berths to the 4 major conferences. The 3-3-2-2-1 format is seen as a compromise, and we've been talking about it, right? We talked about it in the live show earlier today. They're shooting for 4. They're willing to compromise on 3. And we'll get back later on what the Big Ten and the SEC would get on that. But this is a compromise. Big Ten and SEC's initial proposal of 4 automatic berths for those leagues. A model that in a 14-team playoff would leave just 1 at-large spot. If you go 4-4-2-2-1, then it's 1 at-large spots. Big Ten and SEC looks like they might be willing to go 3-3-2-2-1. Timing of the final decision on the format is uncertain, but CFP leaders are facing a somewhat urgent timeline with regards to a new television deal. A format for a future playoff is one of several unresolved issues that commissioners must tackle before extending this deal with ESPN through 2031. A contract worth $1.3 billion annually, according to the network's own reporting. The CFP revenue sharing model, as well as a voting structure, are the other unresolved issues. Bill Hancock believes the issues need to be solved within this next month. The 3-3-2-2-1 format proposal is a move toward another trend in college athletics: unequal treatment among its members. The SEC and the Big Ten swelling to a combined 34 members, and it might grow a few more, with some of the sport's biggest brands are jockeying for more access than other leagues. The format reflects the growing gap between the new tier in the sport, the Power 2 and all others. In this 14-team model, there would presumably be 2 first-round byes. The additional playoff games in the bracket would presumably be played at the home field of the higher seed based on the current format. In the current 12-team format, The 4 highest-ranked conference champions earn a bye, while seeds number 5 through 8 host seeds 9 through 12. Quarterfinals and semifinals are held at the bowl sites. This would be 3 number 12 at, of course, the 3 seeds home campus stadium. 3 versus 14. 4 versus 13. 5 versus 12. 6 versus 11. 7 versus 10. 8 versus 9, and the lower or the higher seeded team gets the home field. More automatic qualifying bids could increase the value of the regular season as teams jockey to position themselves in the conference standings. And this is what we've been talking about at Peek Around the Corner for the last 5 days. This is what this is what they want. They want the eyes on the conference race. Automatic qualifiers also remove the subjectivity from the CFP selection committee that came under fire last season for leaving out the ACC champion Florida State. So under this working model of 14 teams, 3-3-2-2-1 with 3 at-large bids, the selection committee probably be working on the seeding and also working on the 3 at-large bids, but 11 of the 14 are all locked up based upon conference standing. I should say 10 of them are. The P5, they're going to have to go by who's ever the highest ranked champion in the G5 conferences. However, the high number of automatic qualifiers, whether it's 2, 3, or 4, may remove some of the incentive to hold conference championship games. Conference standings are expected to determine the automatic qualifiers, with the conference title games for now included in that formula. So if you come in second place in the SEC conference standings, if you're in second place and you beat the first place team in the conference championship game, you're now number 1, and you might get that bye in the first round. The future of the league title games, this is one of the PATC money shots. The future of the league title games in an expanded playoff is an issue that Yahoo Sports explored in a story in December. Several CFP and college leaders acknowledged that a deeper examination of the championship games is necessary. So that is Dellinger dropped the bomb tonight. 3-3-2-2-1 format. The 3-3-2-2-1 format is seen as a compromise to the Big Ten's and SEC's initial proposal for 4 automatic bursts. We are going to open up the phone lines immediately. Phone lines are now open. 763-260-1333. 763-260-1333. What do you think? 3-3-2-2-1 in a 14-team model?
Call from
Lewis.
Lewis, thanks for calling, sir. The floor is yours.
Well, this was somewhat predictable, and it all involves compromise. It involves where we are now. I do think incrementally this is moving towards a power 2, but it's going to take, as you said, 6 to 8 years, and it's just another step towards it. But I remember when, as I said last week, the 4 proposed by Petteo was a starting point in negotiations.
Mm-hmm.
There was room for compromise, and that's not surprising. Also, you mentioned bad cop, but really the bad cop in this was Sankey, because he proposed a model of the 12 best teams, the 14. That would freeze out the group of 5.
Yeah.
It might freeze out the ACC or the Big 12 some years. That, to take the 12 best teams and leave it up to the committee, was the really bad cop. At least Petteo proposed the model with automatic bids and an expanded format that at least gave something that could work. But this is a compromise, because when I heard the 14-team format before any discussion of automatic bids, it was something that was not good for the Big 12 and the ACC, because those 2 buys are going to go to the Big 10 and the SEC champion most seasons, especially with these expanded teams. If you look historically, the SEC has 8 teams out of 16 that have won national titles in the last 30 years. The Big 10, not quite as many, but you throw in USC, you throw in Washington, that won a national title in 1991, and the teams in the Midwest. I mean, they have the brand names. That's not great. So given that, this is probably the best deal. If this is what it ends up being, the Big 12 and the ACC can do, there will be years. I mean, this year with the ACC, their second team, Louisville, was way down in the standings. They would have made it under this format this year.
Yes.
And so some years you're going to have people complaining, because you could have a situation where you have 2 undefeated group of 5 champions and a 20th ranked team from the ACC gets in. No matter what you do, and this may not be the final version. However, it is a compromise, because I don't think it gets rid of the conference championship games. With the SEC conference championship game is a bonanza. It makes a lot of money down in Atlanta. That's going to guarantee that winner an automatic bid into the next round. That's something to play for. The Big 10 will probably most years be an automatic bid as well. Yeah. Now, then with the ACC and the Big 12 championships, it'll probably be for a home game. It'll be interesting to see if they say the 2 conference champions of the ACC and the Big 12 get a home game. If they get one of the seeds, where they're at least guaranteed a home game. I don't know. That's a wrinkle that's not known. They may or would it just be we're going to rank them after that? The 2 Big 12 teams and the 2 ACC teams could both be playing on the road in the first round. Yeah. And as far as Notre Dame, I mean, they have money and they have status, and they have power, and they have notoriety. If they want to die on the hill of independence to their detriment, they could be they'd be my guest. Look. I mean, and that's what I've heard. I've talked to people from Notre Dame, and they're very much like, we like being independent. We have lots of money. We don't really care. We'll leave some money on the table like the Masters used to do in golf with advertising. Notre Dame will just leave some money on the table to be independent. If they want to die on that hill, they can be my guest. They're not ever going to go anywhere, but I don't think the rest of college football should cater to Notre Dame if they want to be independent. If they want to take a detrimental standing in the playoffs by being independent, that's their choice. No one's forcing them. Yes,
Lewis, you're once again, you're bringing up all these great points. You know, Lewis, I believe. Tell me, you mentioned it early in the call. Somebody in the chat, let me know if I'm off base on this. But after that conference championship game, wasn't Notre Dame rated higher than Louisville? Weren't they?
Well, I think they were. Louisville was down pretty low by the time they were down.
But in this model, this working model, let's just pretend it happens. Louisville would get a spot in front of Notre Dame.
But I have no problem with that, Greg. They can join the Big 10. They can join the ACC.
I have no problem with it. I have no problem with it. I'm just trying to look. I'm trying to understand. Either one, it's A or B. A, Notre Dame somehow supports this, and someone's going to have to really sit down with me. Somebody on a phone call, somebody in the chat room, and knock it in my thick Minnesota head to explain to me why Notre Dame support this. Or B, Notre Dame doesn't support this, but they don't have a veto pen. They're losing, they're losing power. We all know this. A or B, I don't know. It doesn't look good for Notre Dame football independence either way.
Well, I disagree with that, though, because there are 3 at-large bids. So they finished in the top 10. they're one of the top 10 best teams. They still should make it in, no matter how the math works out with the automatic bids. And if they're down there around 11 or 12, do they really need to be in the playoff at that point? Does anybody need to be there when you're getting down? You're really a fringe team playing on the road at that point anyway. And so I just don't think. Now, if it was one bid, if it was 4-4-2-2. One.
Yeah.
Well, then yes, you have one automatic bid. Then yes, Notre Dame has a really hard road to get in there because I could see an SEC team. I mean, this year the SEC was stacked, and that's what scared me in December. Was you look at that top 12, it was all teams that are either in the SEC or the Big Ten or might very well be in that conference in the future. That's your top 12. And so that's why anything to. I mean, look, this gives the SEC and the Big Ten. They now are legitimately certified to be a step ahead of the Big 12 and the ACC. That's unfortunate, but if you live in the world of reality, they have the bigger TV contracts. You can't freeze out the Big 12 and the ACC now because the media partners still invest a lot of money in the Big 12 and the ACC.
Yes.
So you can't just say, okay, ESPN, your deal. The ACC is getting no bids. They're getting just one bid, and no one's going to watch your game. You're still paying the ACC $30 million a year. The same with the Big 12 with Fox and ESPN involved in that. So in 6 years, the two could break away. They might add teams and break away, and Florida State might be out earlier than that. But I don't know that you'll see, if they come to some kind of a deal now, I don't think you'll see the Big Ten adding 6 teams now. That might be a case 6 years from now, 8 years from now. I do think eventually the top 2 conferences will break. If not break away, they'll be so far ahead that your current ACC and Big 12, with whoever's left after they expand, might be where the group of 5 is, and the group of 5 might be somewhere else. I mean, it could just keep going that way. That's the tough thing. There's nothing you can do to stop it. The good thing is, at least under this deal, the Big 12, by getting 2 bids as well as the ACC, that is a positive if that's the case. And I think it'll be something like that. If you make it worse for the ACC and the Big 12 on this, you really devalue their seasons, and I just don't know that given the contracts in place with the media, particularly with the Big 12 just signing this new deal, that's something you're going to see happen. Plus, you'll get the state legislators involved. This plan doesn't rile up the state legislators. It's not great for the group of 5 because they only get the 1 out of 14 slot as opposed to 1 out of 12. They'll probably be the 14th seed every year, but that's just the way it is. Although if the conference champion of the ACC or the Big 12 is 3 and 4. If that's the deal, they may actually get a little bit of a break, ironically.
Yep.
Depends on how it all works out. A lot to work out, but it's a good plan. It will keep people interested for 6 years until there's another breakaway. That's my thought. But it's a good plan. It sounds like a deal was made because
I think
I don't think they're going to 16.
Yeah, all directions point that way. Thank you, Lewis. Beautiful.
Thanks, Greg.
Call
Have a great
once again. Appreciate it, Lewis. The legend, Lewis Holy. Whoops. God, I'm really screwing up the soundboard today, guys. Holy smokes. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, I've taken the phone off the hook. We're going to get back to your phone calls. Now, I said last night in a live show, I said I would be shocked if there wasn't reporting, because we've been hearing that there was going to be some reporting coming out today on the college football playoff update. Yesterday we said we'd be shocked, and we would be shocked if it didn't have to do with automatic qualifiers to stories. We got one from Dennis Dodd earlier today. We've got from Ross Dellinger, and Pete Thamel just put out an article. So we're going to go through the Pete Thamel article, ESPN, Heather Dinich, Pete Thamel, and then we're going to get back to your phone calls as quick as possible. Let us take a look. I want to make sure all this is working. Okay, now this is Pete Thamel. And let me bump this up. There we go. That's easier to read for you all, I hope. Okay, sources. 14-team college football playoff has momentum. Tonight, this was dropped about 30 minutes ago after the Ross Dellinger article. This is Pete Thamel and Heather Dinich, ESPN. The future of the college football contract after the 2025 season remains uncertain. Bill Hancock saying last week, there's a need for a deal to be done in the next month. Okay, we're gonna skip all that. The only certainty, slow pace, turf battles, unstable conference environment, keeping everything fluid. ESPN is poised to spend an average of $1.3 billion for the playoffs for the 6 years. That leaves CFP's two leadership groups, the board of managers, who are the presidents and chancellors, the management committee, which are the commissioners, and Notre Dame's leadership. The goal is for all the commissioners to reconvene next week via video conferencing to further discuss things, sources told ESPN. Now, they are talking. They are talking. But officially, all meeting, reconvene in the video. There's a lot of pressure to get it done or stop talking about it, one source said. The other source saw the cautious optimism of cohesion in the group this way. The balance in the room is how to recognize contributions of the Big Ten and SEC while also being fair and collaborative to the collective room. There's three major issues going forward: access through automatic qualification, division of money, and how the group will be governed. Sources caution that the discussions are ongoing and fluid. There's still work being done on all those three major issues. This is where things currently stand, with sources saying things could change. Ross Dellinger basically calling it a working model. This is the model. It's not finalized. ESPN's about to tell us through their sources what it looks like, what it may be looking like here, the format. The expected boost in automatic qualification spots so soon after the start of the 5 automatic qualifying spots of the 12-team playoff that starts this season is a nod to the changing conference dynamics. And that's what we've been saying, peek around the corner. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. Multiple auto bids are going to be happening. According to sources, the model that's earned the most discussion coming out of the CFP meeting in Dallas is one that will include 3 automatic qualifier spots for the Big Ten and the SEC, and 2 for the Big 12 and ACC. 2 for the Big 12 and the ACC, and 1 for the Group of 5. That would leave 3 at-large spots in the 14-team model. As for Notre Dame, As for Notre Dame, sources told ESPN that the most likely option being discussed is that the Fighting Irish would earn a spot in the 14-team CFP if the selection committee ranks them in the top 14 on selection day. Really, it's top 13. If a top G5 conference champion is rated number 21, they're going to get the spot. There's only 13 spots left. Again, this is not advantageous for the Fighting Irish. There are going to be teams. There's going to be an SEC team, a Big Ten team, an ACC team, a Big 12 team. It's going to happen. They're going to finish out of the top 14, and they're going to make the playoffs, do it an automatic qualifier. I don't have a problem with that. I'm just pointing this out. This is a complete disadvantage for Notre Dame. And I'm going to use this term. I'm going to be shocked if Notre Dame can sell this to their fan base. They love their football independence. It's been part of their identity. But this is not Again, a third place Big Ten team, heck, a second place Big Ten team, a third place SEC team, a second place Big 12 team, a second place ACC team, which just happened, by the way. Louisville, out of the top 14 spots, they're gonna get a spot in the playoffs, and Notre Dame is not unless they finish in the top 14. This is a disadvantage for the Fighting Irish in playoff access, and I think it's going to be a disadvantage in playoff money unless they're getting some huge carve out. Back to the article. Sources caution. There are other models being discussed, and there needs to be a deeper discussion on how strength of schedule would factor into the 3-3, 2-2, 1, and 3 at large, that last 3 being at large model. The CFP isn't locked into that model. It still has a way to go. There has not been significant modeling done yet by Hancock and the CFP officials to how these models would have unfolded in the CFP era. If things change from the AQ distribution that's been most discussed, it may be because of what the modeling would show the outcomes could look like in the upcoming years. Any exercise is difficult. However, because no one knows what a 16-team SEC and 18-team Big Ten are going to look like at the end of the season, there's going to be more competition, right? The records are not going to be as shiny. Back to the article. By adding strong programs and weakening other leagues, it's difficult to project what upcoming years will look like in the SEC in the Big Ten. The potential of the SEC and the Big Ten teams being displaced from the top 14, as they have 34 teams and the majority of the title contending programs, is real and will be examined more in the coming weeks. How would that work? Essentially, a team ranked number 13 or number 14, for example, could end up getting bumped by a group of 5 winner or a second place ACC or Big 12 team in a year when the league has a runaway winner and not a clear second choice. There is also the possibility, though, that the Big Ten and SEC's 4th best teams and potentially 5th would find a landing spot in the CFP. Yeah, we don't know. Of course we don't know. We don't know. The modeling is tricky. As college sports remain a moving target, this ESPN deal would run through the 2031 season. And it's naive. PATC money shot of this Pete Thamel, Heather Dinich article. And it's naive to think the conference map will look the same as it does today. And here comes the next PATC money shot. One high-ranking official involved in the discussions told ESPN on Wednesday the presidents, chancellors in both the SEC and Big Ten are having conversations about whether to continue their NCAA membership. It's a move that would impact and could possibly derail the TV agreement. Those conversations are happening, the source said, adding some feel pretty strongly about pulling away, and I'd say very strongly. I would add, I think there's other conferences that I want to pull away from the NCAA. I'm not sure it's just an SEC Big Ten thing. ESPN reported earlier this month the Big Ten Commissioner Tony Petitti mentioned in a meeting this fall about the potential of an expanded playoff. All CFP politics are local, and Petitti's chair is easy to understand. He has an 18-team league with 4 new teams: USC, Oregon, Washington, UCLA, Two of those four, Oregon and Washington, took part in the CFP as Pac-12 members in the past decade. USC has won a national title on the field since the turn of the century. Petteo values the way automatic qualification games could add meaning and interest late in the regular season, similar to the NFL. This is what we've been reporting on at Peek Around the Corner. I think our last 4 live shows. Petteo values the automatic qualifiers because the games could add meaning and interest late in the regular season. College football fans will need to be reconditioned that a 3-loss team with a rigorous strength of schedule can still make the playoff after generations where perfection or near perfection was essentially required. And I would add this: not every 3-loss team is going to be equal, because what is your conference record? I'd rather be if I'm in the SEC, I'd rather, right now, for an 8-game conference schedule, they're going to go to 9. Let's quit joking around. They're going to go to 9. So let's just pretend the SEC's at 9 games, conference games in 2026. I'd rather be 8-1 in the conference and 9-3 than be 7-2 and 10-2. I'd rather have the better conference record, because that's going to allow me to get an automatic qualifying spot. We're going to have to be reconditioned. The conference record is almost, not quite, but it's almost everything. Finances. There's some leg work to do. There's some leg work to go on, the finances and how they are divided. But the picture is getting clearer if a 14-team model passes. In the old model, about 80%, we know this, went to the Power 5. About 20 went to the G5. According to most recent data, the Power Conferences received about 79, 80 million apiece. The Group of 5 shared about 102 million. And then Notre Dame received a payment of 3.89 million. Okay. The new model promises to be weighted toward the SEC and the Big Ten. Sources told ESPN, holy smokes, I got to fill up my cloak and dagger mug here. The sources told ESPN that discussions have centered around the SEC and the Big Ten earning somewhere between 25 and 30% of the CFP revenue. So that is what they're getting. If this 14-team model happens, 3-3-2-2-1, this is what they're getting in return of giving up one of their automatic qualifying spots that they were going for. This is the compromise. The SEC and the Big Ten will earn between 25 to 30% of the CFP revenue. The ACC and the Big 12 would be next. They would earn somewhere between 15 and 20%. That leaves a smaller chunk somewhere around 6 to 10% for other leagues and nearly 1% for Notre Dame. The math isn't clean. Now, let me just point something out here. That leaves a smaller chunk, somewhere between 6 to 10% for the other leagues and nearly 1% for Notre Dame. The G5 conferences. We put in an early peak episode for early peak members. If you're a member of the show, you can watch those. This morning we dropped one, and there is scuttlebutt. There might be where all the G5 conferences are not treated the same when it comes to playoff distribution, just like the Power 4 conferences. The Mountain West and the AAC might get a percentage or two higher than Conference USA, the MAC, and the Sun Belt. This is a story we're going to be keeping an eye on. But we put that out there in an early peak member For members only, if you want to become an Early Peak member, hit the join button. There's a link provided in the description box. But we talked about it this morning. Keep an eye on that story. The math isn't clean. Sources caution. As some money needs to go to expenses into places like the other remaining independent, UConn. But those are the general financial ballparks being discussed. SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey has made it clear the SEC has delivered 40% of the teams in the playoff, and he has been one of the primary drivers behind the new revenue model. As always with the money, this isn't simple, but the ranges are refined enough to where they appear to be being narrowed in. So nothing is official, but because we're seeing some percentages here, it looks like things are moving in this general direction. The governance, one thing the CFP leaders appear unanimous in favor is eliminating the rule that requires unanimity to make changes to the playoffs. Sometimes it's the 10 FBS commissioners who can't agree. Others, it's the 11 university presidents. So you don't need to have everybody on board. Don't have to have everybody on board. We're going to skip that part. The CFP leaders want to avoid another situation where the Pac-12 single-handedly postponed the move from 6+6 to 5+7. We know about that. You don't want one person holding it up. Okay, so that's the article. Wow. Holy smokes. Man, oh man. We are... now I'm going to open up the phone lines again. Holy cow. But before I do, let me get caught up on all this incredible generosity from our members. Bill G gifted 5 memberships to the PATC community. Holy smokes. So let me first say thank you to Bill G. Thank you once again for your incredible generosity to this Rebel Outpost College Football YouTube channel. Thank you so very much. Bill G, you are once again cloak and dagger united. Thank you so very much. Thank you so very much. And Jimmy does the same thing. Holy smokes. Jimmy gifts 5 cloak and dagger memberships for the channel. Thank you, Jimmy. I appreciate incredible generosity. Jimmy, once again, you are knighted. Cloak and dagger. Wow, that gives so many people the opportunity to go watch our membership-only episodes. We do episodes for everybody. We put one out there today. It was a big one. We put it out there early this morning. Go check it out. I think it was episode 378. John Wildner, Mercury News. Check it out. The Washington State's president says realignment isn't done. Those were his exact words. So go watch. Everybody can watch that episode. If you're an Early Peak Cloak and Dagger member, you can watch an episode that we put out this morning. I think you're going to find it even more interesting after what you just read in the Pete Thamel article. Thank you guys so very much for your gift memberships. Canes all day. Hurricane. The ACC's 2 auto bids better be written in pencil. Yeah, that's interesting. Very, very, very interesting. I wonder if that could possibly change if something should happen. That is a great comment. Canes all day. Thank you for your generosity once again to our channel. Thank you for the super chat. And Lewis, tonight is Greg and the PATC at its best. Fascinating, and the story has years to go. It does have years to go. And remember, Lewis, when we started this in the Holy Smokes Theater, ACC drama, we said it was going to be a long adventure. This was the beginning of the beginning. This was the middle of the beginning. This was the end of the beginning. Now we're at the start of the middle. The very start of the middle. We got such a long ways to go. But we also said here at Peek Around the Corner, we don't believe the breakaway can happen now if it ever does. I've been out there. I've been raked over the coals on some of these big websites because I didn't believe it was going to happen now. To me, there was almost no way it could happen. Could it happen 8 years from now? You know what? We'll talk about it. If the good Lord still has me above ground, I will talk about it 6, 7, 8 years from now. But everybody consumed and obsessed with the Power 2, breaking away. Now what do you got to say? Now what do you got to say? No, there is no breakaway in resources. Yeah, that's been going on forever. Power, yes. Voting rights, yes. But not a complete breakaway. There's so many things going on, Lewis. Thank you so much for your super chat. I appreciate it. There is no host. There is no host that leans on its community more than this guy does. So, here we go. Let me get back. Let me open up the phone lines. I've lost the phone lines. We're opening up the phone line. 763-260-1333. The phone lines are now open. Thank you, Jimmy. Appreciate it. Thank you, everybody. I've got to see who got the memberships. Who got the memberships? It looks like I might have... Can't see it. Can't find it. Can't find it. For all those who become new members, congratulations. You are hereby knighted cloak and dagger.
Call from
Crab Cakes and Football.
Crab Cakes and Football. Holy smokes. What are you thinking? Some big news coming out. The working model. 33221. What are you thinking, Crab Cakes? What do you think Notre Dame is thinking about tonight?
I was going to get to my Notre Dame as my second point.
I
was going to go to the first point I want to make is the one with the G5. I think that should be a play-in game. I don't think it should be given to one. They should just have, hey, you know what? We think this Tulane and Western Michigan were the two best G5 teams. Let them play. Whoever wins it gets that spot. At least that gives them a chance to shine because they're going to lose anyway once they get in there. Like, you know, and if they do miraculously win, they're going to lose a week after that. And then, so it gives them a chance, and that it adds a little something to it because I don't think the G5. I watched Mark Rogers' show the other day or last night or whenever it was.
Yeah.
My truck driver, so my mind's all screwed up.
Yeah.
But and he went through some like 10 years back or something and did what the playoffs would look like.
Yeah.
And there was only like Cincinnati in there once. They had UCF when they were still, you know, and I mean, there are very few times that a G5 actually qualify. So, I mean, I don't think them automatically, mysteriously now getting an auto qualifier, I don't think it's warranted. I think they need to have a play-in game or something, or say, or Notre Dame, if Notre Dame's going to stay independent. If if that G5 team isn't there, they're not performing well, and they're not getting they don't have that marquee win against a USC or something like that. And although they only had that one loss, I think, you know, that was one of my things.
Let me play a little devil's advocate. I've been pounding the table for G5 access here. First of all, they would need some certainty at the start of the season. You can't just say a G5. There has to be, if you know, they're either going to get the playoff access or not. They can't switch it at the end of the season. But, you know, not a whole lot of G5 schools would have been in the playoffs. No question about it. But some of these G5 schools have played pretty good in the bowls. They played pretty good in bowls against teams that would be in the playoffs or just right on the edge of the playoffs. We saw Tulane beat USC. I saw a PJ Fleck, Western Michigan, 13-0 team give Wisconsin everything they could have until the final couple minutes of the game. So, but again, I've talked way too much about why I believe G5 it's good for the game that they have access. Go ahead, continue your phone call, sir.
Well, no problem, because I'm looking at the ACC and the Big 12. If they get the 2 spots, so they're going to get one additional spot more than a G5 person who barely makes the playoff, maybe once every 3 to 5 years.
But but they might get an at-large bid, a Big 12 in the ACC.
Okay, at large, yeah. Now, if they qualify for at large, I think that's fine.
Yeah.
So that's where I think you and I differ a little bit. I don't know if they either have a play-in game or turn around and just, don't. I don't think the G5. I understand where you're coming from with, giving them a seat at the table, but at the same time, not every year do they deserve to be at the table.
I think this is something that you and I can agree on. If this 14-team playoff happens, this working model, if the G5 gets a spot, they earn, the top-ranked G5 school gets a playoff berth, I think it would behoove those G5 schools to compete pretty good here from 2026 to 2032. In other words, don't get blown out every year in the playoffs. Play competitively.
Correct.
I think you and I would agree on that, correct?
Yes, I can agree with that.
Got it.
Now Notre Dame.
Yes, sir.
I have been all over the place with Notre Dame because I'm like everybody else. They're like the woman that you can't figure out. You go on a date, you don't know if she likes you or not. You can never figure it out. So, but with Notre Dame, I'm thinking they realize the writing's on the wall, and I think by 26 they're going to join it, and most likely the Big Ten, because the conference payouts or the TV revenue is going down every year now. It seems like the playoff has only got a $1.3 billion bid right now, and that was lower than what people anticipated, from my understanding. So, and then with the NIL and everything else popping up. And now you got automatic bids, and like you just said in your opening monologue, there's only one. Well, right now there's 3 spots. They would have 3 opens, but if at most likely, most of the time there would be only one open spot for them. If they make it, they make it. If they don't, they don't. I think it all comes down to money, and I think they say we tried to independent. It was their bread and butter to stay independent, but because of legislation that we have no control over, we had no choice but to join a conference that's going to pay us $100 million a year instead of the 50 to 60 million that we're getting with NBC or whatever they're making, because they haven't even released that number yet. What their new deal is with NBC, from what I understand. Yeah. So. I mean, I just think it may not happen overnight. I don't think they're going to join by tomorrow or nothing like that. I'm thinking about 26. I think they might just go, okay, we waved a white flag on this one. Then we'll join, and then whatever. And I had a third point, and dadgum if it didn't slip my mind. So I'm not going to. So I'll just. I remember what the third point was, and Now, as you as a Minnesota fan and me as a Maryland fan, and I'm pretty sure there's other conferences or other teams rather in the SEC that don't really make the playoffs at all or whatever.
Yeah.
I think there has to be something there to give them hope that they're going to be able to make it in, because dadgum if PJ Fleck and Loxley haven't had good teams. If we could just put it all together. I mean, I'm just worried about that access.
That 2019 Gopher team would have made it. So we had one team.
Yeah,
but,
that's true.
We're
getting there.
You know what? Just gotta do it on the football field.
Got to do it on a football field.
Yeah.
So, all right, man. I'll let you go. I'm just curious. I just wanted to talk to you. All right,
Appreciate
later.
it. Thank you, Crab Cakes and Football. I want to show you guys Stuart Mandel here, and this illustrates my point about Notre Dame. Stuart Mandel, the Big Ten and the SEC are getting 3 teams in the 14-team playoff with or without AQ berths. Meanwhile, the ACC didn't have 2 teams in the top 14 in 21 or 23. You're going to turn off the public by legislating special treatment for 2 leagues that don't even benefit from it. Wow. Stuart Mandel is taking a shot at the ACC, and I think he's taking a shot at the Big 12. But, statistically, he's right about the ACC. And there are going to be times, like it happened in 21 and 23, where an ACC second-place team is going to get the AQ spot, which I don't have a problem with, but if I'm Notre Dame, you're at a disadvantage. You're at a disadvantage. I don't know how. I don't know if there is a way to argue it differently.
Call from Jamie Thornton.
Jamie Thornton, the floor is yours. Mrs. Razorback, congratulations again being a Cloak and Dagger member. What do you got to say?
Well, I want to start off, Greg, by thanking Coy and also everybody in here. The generosity has been amazing. It's great to have my voice back.
Yes.
I'll say, I just want to start off by saying all that. There are so many things to break down here. And obviously there still has to be, from everything I've read, right, a lot more has to be done.
Yes.
I'm curious, first of all, like you said, if the SEC and the Big Ten are going to agree to only 3 AQs, how much money? I mean, they're going to pull in and demand a whole lot of money from this.
Well, Pete Thamel has put some numbers down. It sounds like the Big Ten and the SEC would take 25 to 30% of the pot. Now, before, they were 2 out of 5 conferences that took 80%. But, I think they would almost not quite get double that the ACC and the Big 12 schools would get. According to, they would get a third more, it sounds like. But we'll see what happens. None of this is finalized. Yes, to go from their 4 to 3, as we reported the last few days, they were going to get a bigger percentage. We've been talking about that at Peek Around the Corner. That's what we were being told. And it came out to be where Pete Thamel reported it. So, it's give and a take, I guess.
Yeah, and Sankey, like you've reported too, and that's what I was told, the way Sankey views it, I mean, he didn't even want AQs, right? Like you said. So he's fine either way. He's like, oh, yeah, if you want that, Tony, he's like, if you want the AQs, whatever. Because he's sitting there knowing that ESPN, they're going to be in control of this whole thing again. And we already saw what happened with the selection committee. I mean, I believe he totally feels comfortable knowing the SEC is going to get probably at least 2 of these at-large teams that might be left on the board. He's figuring probably, a minimal of 1. But, I mean, if he puts 5 SEC schools in there, around every year, most years, of a 14-team playoff, he's loving that. I mean, that's just the bottom line on that. The ACC one, now that's another one. Like, I know Canes have said it. Crab Cake said it. That's the one to me that blows my mind. What happens there? They know already FSU is gone, right? And I can just tell everybody, and I know you've mentioned it too, Clemson and UNC, the silent treatment. I can tell you what Chris told me. He said, if you notice, they haven't made a peep. And just think back to Oklahoma and Texas. It's the way Sankey works. He doesn't like a lot of stuff coming out and being said. And he said, of course, they have to free themselves from the ACC first. But let's just assume for a minute that those 3 end up leaving or are on their way out by then. what does that leave in the ACC to get to? If I'm the Big 12, I am very upset about that, because I'm like, look at what we have in our conference versus them, and they're getting the same amount of AQs. I'm just curious what your thoughts are on what's going to happen with that.
Maybe now, if we went to the Petteo article, Ross Dellinger article, maybe they would change. Maybe they would be able to change how many automatic qualifiers the ACC would get. Maybe it would automatically drop the one, because they don't need a unanimous vote, right?
Right.
So it's easier to change in midstream. So
imagine you have a Louisville and and they get one, and they get like a Virginia Tech team that's just you know what I'm saying. After that, it's not even necessarily in the top 25 or at the very end of it. That would obviously rile up a lot of people. I thought it was fascinating in that article you just shared that here we are having presidents and members, athletic members, talking about an actual breakaway. That's another thing that's just the fact that it's actually being mentioned and brought up, that I guess literally all these options are on the table. It's crazy. I guess it's literally like, I think Josh, you had mentioned in Josh's show, like all these things are on the table. And so maybe, like you said, maybe that was mentioned, but I was told the same thing about you as far as divisions go. It's not going to happen in the SEC, that there's just no way that it's going to happen. And part of that, like you said, is the power. The SEC doesn't want to have, if they did end up having a play-in or like a 4-team, if there had been 4 AQs, right, and there had been some talks about that, maybe that if there was like a 4-team conference championship game or something like that, they would never want the power, obviously with divisions, they would never want to have like, say, Texas and Oklahoma and Missouri and one of those schools getting left out. It's just not going to work that way anymore. So, it's just going to be best, like you said, the best schools. And I'm curious, I'm fascinated too, like you said, about record. That's going to be intriguing too. You're going to want the best conference record to see how these schools get picked for the AQs.
Yeah, it's going to go by conference records. It's not going to go by rankings.
Right, that's the thing. If that's the case, you're going to want to make sure that conference games are going to matter and mean a lot more. It will be interesting to see. I know I just told the insane amount of money they make on these conference championship games.
Yeah.
And I don't know what's going to happen with them. I'm sure they're still going to probably try to keep them, but one of the things that's curious that I was told about 14 is maybe the incentive of if the SEC and Big Ten try to work it out where there's two. With 14, if the first two get the automatic buys, right?
Yeah.
That they try to automatically put that in there where the Big Ten and the SEC get those, the champions. So that way it's worth playing for.
I don't think that's going to happen.
Okay. I was just curious about what you thought.
Yeah, I don't know how you could do that. That would be.
I'll see what you.
Yeah.
Got you.
Yeah.
Okay, Greg. Well, thanks for all the great stuff and the great show, and thank you for the Cloak and Dagger membership again.
You got it.
And yes, sir. Yeah, and Woo Pick Suey. You have a great one.
Appreciate it, Jamie. Mrs. Arkansas, Razorback. Great call, Jamie. Thank you so very much. Yeah, they're with the 14-team playoff. You have the incentive for the 2 top conference-rated champions to get a bye, right? You want that incentive to be with the ACC and the Big 12 championship games. Remember, these media partners, ESPN has more than one championship game. You want incentive. You want to keep some incentive if they're going to keep the conference championship games. I don't think there's any way that you can automatically give the bye to a Big Ten and the SEC. You're not going to, if there is a 13-0 Virginia Tech Hokies, you just can't do that, in my opinion.
Call from
ABO Prep Course.
So, can you hold on just one moment, please?
Absolutely.
I do appreciate it. OKC Thunder fan, 88. First time super chatting ever. Glad it could be on your show, Greg. Keep up the great work. Wow, I am very humbled. Thank you, OKC Thunder. Thank you for your incredible generosity, super chat. Thank you so very kindly. I appreciate it all. I appreciate you coming on in, being part of the PATC community. OKC Thunder, Minnesota Timberwolves. Who's going to get the number one spot in the Western Conference going into the playoffs? That's a question I have for you, Thunder fan 88 Soap. The floor is yours.
Well, thank you, Greg. I had the privilege of finding you in the winter of 22, and we began chatting then and kind of predicting what we thought this future would look like with realignment and so forth. And it was all far-fetched and crazy talk. And by gosh, most of it hasn't come true. And
Yeah.
I say that because it's not by accident. This is a grand plan by those people who have a lot of money invested in it and want to see this structure of college football diametrically changed. And I believe that what we're looking at is, I think you and I can agree that in all probability, the ACC is going to change greatly within the next year or so. Or let's just be conservative and say prior to the 2026 season.
I agree.
Believe,
yes.
I believe that you're going to see 6 teams leave to the SEC and Big Ten, and you're going to see 4 teams leave to the Big 12, thus leaving the ACC with only 6 teams and no legitimate conference.
Yes.
Assuming that happens, and both you and I kind of agree that that's going to happen, then this whole system we're talking about right now for the playoffs, the 3-3-2-2, is irrelevant. But the structure of it is not. And what do we know? We know that the SEC and the Big Ten want 4 teams. So if the ACC weren't there, wouldn't it make sense that those 2
Yes.
automatic qualifiers that were part of the ACC would go over to the SEC and the Big Ten? Likewise, I tend to believe that maybe even one of the Big 12 might be in a position to say, hey, we need another qualifier. We took on 4 schools. So you could have a situation where you have these 4 pods of 4 SEC teams, 4 Big Ten teams, 2 or 3 Big 12 teams, and an automatic and a G5, and then a 4 at-large teams, which for all practical purposes would be a Big 12. I'm sorry, would be a Big 10 or an SEC members. Mm-hmm. Looking at a situation where, let's say, I don't know, Ohio State is playing Michigan, and Michigan wins, but Ohio State has only 1 loss. Well, they're going to be one of those automatic qualifiers. So probably those automatic qualifiers are going to be pretty good teams. My point is that you would then have a guarantee that that the SEC or the Big Ten are going to have 2 teams in the quarterfinals, at least. Each of them are going to be guaranteed 1 in the quarterfinals and possibly 2. You could see it even go so far as it just remains 2 in the Big 12, and I know you're against this, Greg, but I think you're going to see the G5 automatic qualifier go away. They're just going to say we're going to have 6 at-large spots, and if the G5 is one of the top 6, then they qualify. But you could then have a situation, Greg, where you have teams in each one of those pods. You could have the SEC and the Big Ten each have representatives in the Big 12 pod. So you could get to a situation where the SEC could actually have 3 teams in the quarterfinals, or the Big Ten could have 3 teams in the quarterfinals. They would be each guaranteed at least 1 in the quarterfinals, but they could go so far as having 3. And I think that's the plan all along.
Okay.
I think that's where we're going with this. It's and as we've talked before, I'm sticking with what I've always said, which is three leagues of 20-20-20. You play each of those leagues have four little small divisions in it, and you play 4 teams in your division every year, and then you play another division for your 9 conference games. And if you win your little division, then you're one of the automatic qualifiers. And and you would literally have the SEC pod, the 4 games in the SEC pod would be the SEC championship playoff. The 4 games in the Big Ten pod would be the Big Ten championship playoffs. And then you'd have the additional 6 at large for the teams that didn't make it. But I don't know. That's it for me, Greg. I really think that this is not by chance, that this is by design, and that all of this is for show, particularly just to set it up where when the ACC is gone, they can move very quickly and easily into a 4-4 for the SEC and Big Ten. What do you think?
You are either on something or on something. So
you always say that. well, I ain't been on something since 2006, man. But so I hope I'm on to something.
It all sounds good, sir. Who knows? We'll find out.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity, my friend.
You got it.
That's for your family.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Appreciate it, so. Great call by Soap once again. I just took the phone off the hook. The Athletic came out with an article. I'm just going to read a little bit off my phone. Basically the same thing as ESPN and Ross Dellinger has reported. The 14-team and the 16-team model were discussed, with the 14-team model getting more traction. More automatic qualifying spots were the key point to the discussion, as we've been reporting at Peek Around the Corner for the last 4 or 5 days. A 3-3-2-2-1 model, 3 Big Ten, 3 SEC, 2 Big 12, 2 ACC, 1 G5 could be similar to the UEFA Champions League, where the top domestic soccer leagues in Europe are given more AQ spots and buys in the European tournament than the lesser leagues. But one notable difference is that the soccer tournament includes far more teams and leagues. Another difference is domestic European leagues don't have postseason tournaments to determine the champion, because every team plays every other team. We're not going to have that in these big, large conferences. That's why the conference championship game, it seems logical that you'd have to play it, because teams are not playing the same schedule. This model could create more stakes. Again, this is the Athletic, Chris Vanini. This model could create more stakes for the regular season, as schools in the Power Four would jockey for that last guaranteed spot like soccer. In theory, it would put more emphasis on the conference standings, which we've been talking about at Peek Around the Corner the last 3 days. More emphasis on the conference standings than the controversial CFP rankings. But it would also bring into question the need for conference championship games, especially when the Big 12 and the ACC champions would be long shots to earn a first-round bye, lessening the value of winning the championship. The bloated conference could also see uneven schedule strength within their leagues play a factor in the final standings, which I agree. Notre Dame may also need a threshold to guarantee a spot if the Fighting Irish are ranked above second place teams in the conferences. Notre Dame may also need a threshold to guarantee a spot if Fighting Irish does that destroy the usefulness of conference champions? I'm just trying to see if there's anything. There are going to be Zoom calls next week, early March, between the commissioners. I don't know. I don't know. The one part of it I'm questioning is, what are you talking about a threshold for Notre Dame? They would have to try to get one of the at-large bids. So they would have to be ranked one of the top 3 at-large bids after all the automatic qualifying spots have been delivered out. I don't think if Notre Dame is ranked higher than a second place ACC or the second place Big 12, well, that's too bad. You're not in a conference. I don't know about that. But anyways, back to your calls. I'm going to open up the phone lines once again. If you're new to the channel, or if you haven't done so, please subscribe to College Football's Peek Around the Corner. Hit the subscribe button. Have your notifications on. This is our second live show of today. You never know when we're going to come on live. You got to keep your head on a swivel. You've got to have your notifications on. We cover every story in college football. We go where the story goes. And please smash the like button if you like our content. Holy smokes. Ted Evans comes in, Mr. Husky. Holy smokes. Wow. Unbelievable. Incredible generosity by Mr. Washington Husky. Ted Evans gifted 10 memberships. Holy, okay.
Call from
Zach.
I'm sorry. Can you hold on 1 second, sir?
Yes.
I appreciate it. Ted Evans, thank you so very much. Once again, Ted is Cloak and Dagger Knighted in big style. Holy moly. Holy smokes. And the people who got the gift memberships: Matt Higgins, Xmas Tox, Summit Hawk, Gary Partridge, Right of the Line, Jen, Mrs. Sentinel, Insane Mob, Roy McNamara, Jason Kuhn, and B.U. Patrick Baylor. Holy smokes. All 10 of you are holy smokes, Cloak and Dagger Knighted early peak members. Congratulations. That means everybody that was just picked up a gift membership by Mr. Ted Evans, you can now go to the early peak Cloak and Dagger episodes from members only. We dropped an important one this morning. Go check it out. Anyways, appreciate it, Mr. Evans. Holy smokes, that incredible generosity. My, oh my. Okay, and then T5 Terps. I'm sorry, caller. I got to clean this up here. T5 Terps, thanks for the hard work, Flugs, whatever you want to call me. Thank you, D5 Terps. Appreciate it, Mr. Terrapin, for your continued generosity. This YouTube channel. I'm sorry, caller, I did not get your name.
It's Zach.
Zach. Are you Zach Mock?
No, I wish, but no.
Oh, you're not Mock. Okay, there's a Zach Mock in our community. Okay, sir, the floor is yours. Thank you for your patience.
Yeah, no, I wanted to, again, bring up the Big 12 ACC auto bids.
Yes.
I know the ACC right now has Florida State, Clemson, Miami, the heavy hitters of the conference. But if I'm the Big 12, I'm looking at this like Florida State, Miami, Clemson could leave by 2026. So I was thinking if I'm the Big 12, I would maybe say, hey, let's have a third auto bid for a conference. I know the conference is kind of bloated right now with Texas and Oklahoma leaving. But if I'm Big 12, I would interject and say, hey, Big 10, SEC, you get 4 bids, and we get a third bid right now as it is right now before this gets finalized. Because I think Florida State, Clemson, Miami, one of the 3 is going to leave to join the Big 10 alongside Notre Dame.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about that?
Well, I again, I think, now I might be wrong here, Zach, but I think we might have to recondition ourselves in another manner, and I think it's not going to. Now I'm going to probably regret that I said this, but I don't think changing the model is going to be as difficult as it has been in the past. We read Pete Thamel's article early today. He put it out there about an hour and a half ago. One of the other things they're working on besides this model is the governance structure to where they don't have to have unanimous. So if they get something passed here where it's, let's just pretend it happens, this working model. Let's just pretend it gets across the goal line. 3-3-2-2-1. And then Florida State settles. There's a number there. They buy themselves out. They go to the SEC of the Big Ten, a few other ACC schools. I think they'll be able to change. There'll be enough power. I think it's going to get changed. I think the Big 12 is going to get another. Whatever happens, it's going to be able to get changed within the 6-year contract. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it isn't like before where we knew that it took everybody to vote to get something passed. It's not like that going forward.
Yes, no, I definitely agree with that. My second point is about the G5s and them getting the auto bid.
Yeah.
So I know, again, you brought up earlier about, maybe the Mountain West and the AAC, one of the two maybe, or maybe more, would get the more revenue from the playoffs. Do you see potentially one of the two, maybe the Sun Belt, getting another auto bid as the committee or whatever views them as a better G5? If there's 2 teams in a conference that are that will be able to make the playoffs, like Jamie Okosa, for example, if they're both ranked, let's say in the top 15, one of them gets the automatic spot from being the best G5. Do you think maybe one of those conferences could get another team in if they are deemed worthy or not over another at-large bid from a P4 conference?
I don't think there's going to be more than one auto spot for a G5 schools. Now, could there be an auto spot and then another G5 school that won some big time out of conference games, like New Mexico State? They beat Auburn, right? You got G5 schools beating big time schools all the time. But I don't think there's going to be more than one qualifying spot for a G5. And I'm just going to tell you the honest why that's not going to happen is because of ESPN. They do not getting one G5 auto spot, okay, but they're not going to go for 2. They want the bigger brands, the bigger eyeballs. They want their advertisers. They want to know. And the G5s, God bless them, I'm their biggest defender. They don't bring that to the table. But having one automatic spot for the best G5 top-ranked conference, I believe, and we're going to find out this year, before we even get into 2026. I believe that's going to bring more eyeballs into watching G5 games, the conference races, and then the conference champions between the G5. I think it's going to bring more interest, and it's going to bring more money to the G5 schools, and the student athletes, the players are going to be more. It's just, I think it's better for the game entirely. So I think one auto spot, but I don't think there's ever going to be two. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, because I was thinking about it. Okay, if there's two G5s, one has maybe one loss, but another one's undefeated, like Liberty, for example,
Yeah.
they play CUSA. Their conference wasn't that good. I would at least think they would potentially maybe not get the auto spot now with a team like SMU, for example, last year. Again, 2-loss AAC team, but they played in a good conference, so I would think SMU would get, the automatic spot, and Liberty would be an undefeated G5 that's left out of the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, again, in theory, there could be a G5 conference champion and then another G5 that somehow finishes in the top 14 in the conference. It's probably not going to happen. It would take an absolute miracle shot. But there's going to be one G5 school in it, and I think that's the best that they're going to get.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel bad for G5, but I also see, again, the point of just allowing one of them to qualify, because you don't want blowouts every year, because then be the question, okay, do the G5s deserve to be here, or,
well, let's
should we put another P4?
If you're a proponent of the G5, let's just hope that G5 school competes, puts up some good games in the next, starting now, 2024 to 2032. Let's hope the G5 schools put in a couple good games at least during this stretch.
Yeah, no, definitely. Again, I went to the Fiesta Bowl last year between Oregon and Liberty. And,
yeah.
I don't want those games every year. I at least want some type of team from G5 that that can at least 20+ point game, all that stuff.
Yeah, but the year before, Tulane, they beat USC, so they were the best G5 school 2 years ago.
Yeah. So again, there's no more Cincy UCF anymore. So again, it'll be really interesting to see how that all plays out with
Yeah. All righty. I appreciate the call.
All right. Thank you.
You got it. Beautiful. Call again.
I will. Thank you again, Greg.
Beautiful, beautiful. Let's get back to the comments here. The phone lines are open. 763-260-1333. Jamie Thornton she was gifted a membership earlier today, and now she passes out a membership. Holy smokes. Thank you, Jamie, for the generosity. Wow. Unbelievable, Jamie. Thank you so very much. Jamie, I've already knighted you once today. I'm going to knight you again. You, Jamie, and your wife are Cloak and Dagger knighted. Thank you very much.
Call from
Tristan Fibes.
Tristan, can you hold on one moment, please?
Certainly.
I do appreciate it. And Zach Mock, you've been gifted a membership by the generosity of Jamie. Zach, you are Cloak and Dagger knighted. Congratulations. So Zach Mock, go, and you have the ability now to watch the Cloak and Dagger early peak episodes from members only. We dropped a pretty important one this morning. Go check it out. Caller, I'm sorry, I forgot your name already.
Oh, Tristan.
Tristan, I apologize, Tristan. I apologize. The floor
Not a problem.
is yours.
Okay, so we're talking about 3 AQs for the Big Ten and the SEC, and I guess you've probably already talked about this, but I don't think I've caught it if you have. So do you think that both conferences, if this becomes finalized and they actually do get these AQs, do do you think that both conferences will hold their own postseason games to obtain those AQs? Say, for example, the top 6 square off against each other. 1 plays 6, 2 plays 5, and then the 3 winners get the 3 AQs.
Oh, you're talking about the conference tournaments?
Yeah.
I don't think that's happening.
Okay.
Well, let me put it this way: I haven't heard anything of that. I know that Josh Pate was talking about it, and I did a live show right after he reported it, and I was saying we're hearing the complete opposite. But that doesn't mean that he's wrong, and we're right here at Peek on the Corner. But the people that we're talking to are not talking about that at all. Now, Is that something that could happen down in the future to make more money, to have the top 4 teams have that semifinal weekend? Yes, that's a possibility. This is that scenario is something the Big Ten has been talking about since Mike Hollis, the athletic director, former athletic director in Michigan State, had those conversations with Jim Dellinger. Jim Harbaugh, the head coach in Michigan, has had those conversations. Those conversations have happened over and over and over again. I do not believe it's happening now, though. I don't think that's part of this.
Okay. Well, let me just say this. I think that if that ever does come about, the way that they would have to do it, we're expanding the playoffs here, and they're already playing a 12-game regular season, and then there's a conference championship game. I think if they're ever going to do this, if they do it, they'll have to scale back the regular season to 11 games and then make that playoff round, or whatever you want to call it, a conference tournament or whatever. They'd have to slot that into the 12th week. If they were going to do it, I think that's how they'd have to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're starting to stack up too many games, and these are still, these are college kids. This isn't the NFL quite yet,
Yeah.
So the other thing too is that I was watching it earlier in the show. You had that quote from I think it was Stuart Mandel.
Yeah.
I interpreted that as a criticism against. He was saying that the Big Ten and the SEC were going to get criticized over this. That's how I interpreted his quote. It didn't make sense to me because he had 2 different things that he was talking about in there.
Let me see if I can find it again here. Hold on.
Yeah.
Are you saying he's criticizing the Big Ten and the SEC for agreeing to this model? Is that what you're?
Well, he said they're getting 3 schools in whether or not they have AQs.
I got it up on the screen here. Stuart Mandel, the Big Ten and the SEC are getting 3 teams into the 14-team playoff with or without the qualifying berths.
Right.
So he's not ripping on the Big Ten and the SEC. He's saying he's ripping on them to the fact that they're pushing it so hard to get these automatic qualifying berths.
Yeah, it's the last part. He says you're going to turn off the public by legislating special treatment for 2 leagues that don't even benefit from it.
Oh, you're saying the 2 leagues, because the Big Ten and the SEC are not benefit. Tristan, you're absolutely correct. I read that wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it was a little bit vague too, to be honest with you.
Yes.
But yeah, he seems to be taking a shot at the P2 right here.
Now, why would the public be turned off if is he saying that Big Ten and SEC fan bases public are going to be turned off? Because they're not...
I don't know. My impression of it is that he seems to be saying, why are you asking for this special treatment if you already have 3 teams? Like we were pointing out this past season, right? The top 12 teams were all Big Ten and SEC almost.
Yeah.
Right, with their future members, right? So you're looking at Washington and Oregon, and then Texas and Oklahoma. When you add those schools to these conferences, they're going to have 3 AQs no matter what. And I think the tone of his tweet or whatever this is sounds like, why are they bullying everyone with these AQs when they don't even need them. Right? That's what it sounds like to me.
Yeah.
But he does say, he also says right in the middle, though, this is what seems contradictory. He says, meanwhile, the ACC didn't have two teams in the top 14.
Yeah.
So to me, that seems like that would engender more outrage for them to get two AQs when they don't have two teams in the top 14, if that were to happen again.
Yeah.
Right. So it seems a little contradictory to me how he phrased it. But, yeah, I just wanted to get back to that.
Very good point. And I'm glad you corrected me on that. Now, I think Tony Petitti would answer Stuart Mandel back in saying that we are going to be assured 3 teams. The insurance is valuable to us and to our media partners. And then, of course, they can get more than 3 teams with that large bids. They just want the assurance of it. I think that's what they want.
Right.
But again, they talked about I can't remember which article because we've read so many tonight, but they're going to be doing some modeling work to see what it's been like in the past. And maybe the story's going to change. Maybe the Big Ten and the SEC are going to push back to 4 each. Maybe we're going to be looking at not a 14-team, but a 16-team playoff. We'll see what happens. But it looks like we're getting some traction, though.
Yeah, to me, this feels like this 14-team proposal, because it's not finalized, right?
Not finalized. Nope, a lot of work to do.
Yeah, so this proposal feels like a half measure to 16. And what I mean by that is if the expected outcome happens with Florida State, and then let's say another team or 2 chooses to leave the ACC, suddenly the 2-team AQ for the ACC doesn't feel correct. And let's say, for example, the SEC and the Big Ten both get another team or 2 from the ACC, then they're going to be able to make the argument, well, hey, we should have 4, right? And so it feels like to me, this feels like it's a half measure trying to get it to 16, but they can't quite sell that just yet while the ACC is still intact.
Yeah, and and that's kind of like what we've been getting told here at Peek Around the Corner from people we talked to. We reported, like earlier today, we just flat out said, sources saying the title of the show was Big Ten and the SEC are going to get their automatic qualifying spots. They're going to get some of them. Now, we've also were told that the people are talking to us, they believe this is going to go to 16. Now, because of what you just said, but all the reporting today is 14 has the most traction. So we'll find out, but we're being told because they're going to be able to grease the skids a little bit easier with a 16-team playoff, that probably will get through the door. But right now, 14 sounds like it's the chalk.
Yeah, that probably is correct. I think you're on the money there.
Yeah.
So I do have one last question, if you don't mind. So hypothetically, all right, so we know the Big Ten is at 18 currently.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of, let's just say there's a strong possibility that they end up with FSU and Notre Dame.
Yeah.
Do you believe that the SEC would feel compelled to try and get to 20 teams as well? Or do you think they might settle at 16 or 18?
Well, they're at 16 already.
Right.
If the Big Ten gets like a Notre Dame and Florida State, the SEC is going to be expanding. They're going to be expanding the footprint. They're going to bring in North Carolina and probably Clemson, and we'll see if they go to 20. But if the Big Ten expands, the SEC is going to expand.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess the main point of what I was asking is, do you think they would feel compelled to try and get to 20?
Great question. I don't know. it all depends on who exactly the Big Ten takes. All that.
Right.
What if it's Florida State, Clemson, North Carolina, and another team, and then it's Notre Dame and Miami to the Big. There's a lot of variables to that. They might be compelled to go to 20, but maybe not. So I'm copping out on that question. It's a great question.
Yeah, well, there's too many variables. It
Yeah.
does obviously depend on who's available, right?
Yeah.
So I'll throw this. This is my parting thought. USF is AAU.
Yes.
They are going to be more attractive to someone in the not too distant future.
Yeah.
And they're not being talked about now, and I know it's all about Florida State and the current ACC, but I don't think it's going to take too terribly long for USF to become a hot commodity. It'll take a few years, but I don't think it's going to take a whole lot longer than that.
Get that stadium built, which they're going to do. Yeah, I would agree with you. And again, if the ACC implodes and lose Florida State and Miami, USF is going to be one of the very first calls that they're going to be called. The schools call the conferences first in realignment. But
right.
I think the ACC will pick up the phone when the Bulls call from Southern Florida, if that happens, if Florida State and Miami leave the conference.
Yeah, I agree. That's a good call there.
Yeah.
All right, thanks, Greg. Enjoy the show and keep up the good work.
Got it. I appreciate it. Thanks for the call. Call again, Tristan. Appreciate it.
All right, take care.
All right. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Another beautiful call. Holy smokes. Man, there's a lot going on tonight. Thank you for all coming in. Second live show of the day. Big 12, ACC, working model, 14 teams. Right now, look at Brett McMurphy's tweet. I'll get to it in a second.
Call from
JD.
JD, can you hold on 1 second, please?
Yes, sir.
I appreciate it. Look at, if I knew what I was doing here, look at Brett McMurphy's tweet, a 14-team CFB playoff model under consideration. Would give automatic bids to 3 Big Ten, 3 SEC, 2 ACC, 2 Big 12, 1 group of 5 team, and 3 at-large bids. 3 bids to the remaining highest-ranked at-large team. Sources told Action Network. First reported by Ross Dellinger. If finalized, it would start in 2026. And we know that everybody wants to get this done in the next 3.5 weeks. JD, the floor is yours.
How you doing, Greg?
Doing good.
Moving forward, and I think you already mentioned this, but I was just double checking here. Moving forward, any changes just need a majority vote. Is that correct?
I'm guessing it needs a majority vote, but we don't really know. We don't really know that. We don't know if it's a majority. We don't know. We know nothing about. Hopefully, the governance model gets approved in the next 3.5 weeks, and we get told what the votes like. It's going to be weighted towards the SEC and the Big Ten. It's going to be weighted towards more of the Big 12 and the SEC versus the G5 schools. But we don't know. I'm guessing right now it's just by majority and not 60% or 75% need to approve it. It's not unanimous, but they're not really telling us exactly what it takes to get something passed.
Okay. Well, we'll just pretend it's majority or it's a certain percentage.
Yeah.
Just echoing what a lot of other people are saying, but that's what's the most important part for me is
how hard is it to make changes in the future? Because if you're trying to get this passed as quickly as possible, you want to make sure everybody has their seat at the table or their piece of the pie. To just go ahead and say, ACC, you get 2, Big 12, you get 2, the Power 2 is going to get 3 each, knowing very well that at least 2 of those at-larges are going to go to one or both of them, And so they're usually going to get 4 anyway, or at least one of them is. Mm-hmm. One of them might get 5 in a particular year. And then to move to 16 later is that much easier. You can't just presume the ACC is going to break apart until it does. And you listen to some of this ACC media. I mean, they're pretty adamant the ACC is going to be fine. I don't know if that's just them putting on a happy face or putting on a good front, or do they really believe that? I don't know. And I think there's a lot of things that we don't know as far as how much, like some of your previous callers were saying, how much bigger is the SEC going to go? How much bigger is the Big Ten going to go? I think there's a lot of this built in, but I think with the change in the college, in the playoff structure or the voting structure in the future, there's not a particular speed they have to go. They can grow at whatever pace they want. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I know for the ACC, getting 2 auto bids, I look at this 2 different ways. One is I could see schools like Wake Forest and Virginia Tech and some of the others that are like, oh yeah, let Florida State and Clemson leave. That's a better opportunity for us to make the playoff, and then we'll just take their buyout money and we'll just make our situation a lot better. But there is like was suggested, there's that chance that those you could lose one of those spots, or God forbid 2 of them, or the conference breaks apart. I don't know. I see this going in so many different directions. I don't know. Mm-hmm. It just, I don't know, sir. I'm anxious for something to happen and something to break soon, but I don't think anything would happen on the ACC end, especially for FSU. One is we know for March 22nd, but I don't believe that the ACC would be willing to negotiate anything until the college football playoff situation was at least somewhat cemented for their future as best as they can. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I agree. Look, there's an SI article, Sports Illustrated, Pat 40, just came out, just released an article. And it talks about how the 4, I got up on the screen, I don't have this part of it. Let me find it here. There was a big pushback on 4 automatic qualifiers for the Big Ten and the SEC. That wasn't going to happen. So now it's 3-3-2-2-1. And I think you're going to give 2 to the Big 12. You're going to give 2 to the ACC for now, right? And I think you and I can agree on if the ACC implodes in the next couple of years, they're going to find an easier. It's going to be easier to change the auto bids going to what conference, because the voting structure is going to be totally different. So it's going to be changeable, right? Sure. And one other thing that has nothing to do with what you're saying right now, FD, but I want to JD, but I want to bring this up because finally somebody is saying what I'm saying. A power conference administrator expressed reservations about further marginalizing the group of 5 leagues. There are feeder system. They feed us players. They feed us coaches. They feed us games. They feed us athletic directors. Coaches and athletic directors move up to the power conference level and experience all the advantages. They developed amnesia about where they came from. Exactly. For the betterment of the game itself. Don't cut off the feeder system. Don't cut off the feeder system of the G5 League. I'm sorry, JD. I had to bring that up because this is what I've been saying. I feel like I'm the only one, but finally somebody put an article saying the exact same thing. But go ahead, JD. Continue.
I want to touch on that. I don't think there's a Power 2 breakaway unless the Power 3 and 4 and the G5 want it that way. Yeah. In other words, if it gets to be where the disparity is so much that it's just hard to even compete, at that point there'll be a breakaway. But if you have, G5 schools that are wanting to compete and wanting to still play for, their version of the playoff, their playoff spot, how can you say no to them? I mean, you can't. But do I see a future 10 years down the road or 7 or 8 years down the road where there's a split in college football? Sure, but everybody's going to have to agree that that's necessary. Yeah, you can't unilaterally make the change. Yeah, and we don't know what's going to happen in a few years. What if the ACC stays together? What if the Big 12 stays together? The Big 12 is going to stay together. But what if the ACC backfills and then there's a couple of programs that rise up? Who knows the way that these media contracts, who knows that the next media contract is going to be as lucrative and there's a step down for the Power 2. I still think that it's going to be very, very lucrative. I think it's going to pay better than it does now. But one other thing, and then I'm gonna get off here. I don't think it's that difficult of a structure if you're going to have 3 auto bids for the Power 2. You're going to have your conference championship game. What's to say you don't also have a play-in game on the same weekend, so that 1 and 2 play for the conference title, and they both get their auto bids, but 3 and 4 play just to see who else makes it in.
Yeah, that's
so it's not an additional game.
No,
it's not an additional tier. But you understand what I mean?
That is, you're not the first one but you're the first caller who has brought that up. They're very intriguing on that because you're only adding a game. You're not doing 2 games. You're not doing a semifinal, Final Four team. You're doing a play-in. You're doing 1 and 2. Whoever wins the champion, whoever loses is going to be number 2, and then 3 and 4 play in a play-in game. It's very intriguing. Very intriguing. It's been talked. Someone talked to me about it earlier. I can't remember which day, if it was today or yesterday. All these days are blurring together. Very intriguing, JD.
Well, the losing team will probably still make it in, or maybe they don't. Maybe they don't. Maybe they don't. Maybe they don't. Maybe there's a team. Maybe there's a 5th team they got left out that people think are better, and they leapfrog the other one, and it starts more controversy. But regardless, some of these are being decided on the field, and it adds more, like you said. I think that's the perfect word: intrigue, more viewership. It's an extra game because I think these conferences, without extending the season, to add a little more participation at the championship level or playoff berth level is just a win for everybody. Mm-hmm. But I'm looking forward to the G5 playoff because I think they'll come up with one. I think there'll be a G5 playoff to get into the playoff. But anyway,
we'll see if,
all right.
Yeah. All right. Appreciate it, JD.
Hey, thank you. Have a good night.
Thanks for the call. Thank you. Very intriguing phone call by JD. That play-in game. Now, the play-in for the G5, for the two top G5 champions. See, that would be an extra game for them. And then the winner goes to the playoffs after playing an extra game than the Power 4 conferences. Because they'd be playing the championship game. The G5 teams are playing the championship games. Then they have a play-in, and then they got the winner then has to, I don't know if you would have to give G5 a whole lot of money for that game. I don't see that happening. But the play-in between third place, fourth place in the SEC, third place, fourth place in the Big Ten, that is intriguing. Don't know if it's, it's intriguing to think about. But then again, that could bring up a whole lot of other controversies. RX, how can one conference commissioner keep 18 teams all happy? It may be impossible. It may be impossible. And we might see that 6 years down the road, RX. Realignment never sleeps. Maybe conferences become smaller. We don't know. We do not know, but that is, we don't know, RX. Great comment. Chris Hughes, the split in college football will come when players start getting paid. I fear many colleges will eliminate sports because they can't afford it. Thank you, Chris Hughes, for the super chat. I appreciate it so very much. Thank you for your generosity. Great point. Very good point. Let me thank everybody who's come on in for a second live show today. I appreciate you all. We're going to shut this live show down. We've been on the air for over 2 hours in this live show and over an hour and 40 minutes in the previous one today. I want to thank everybody who has come on in. If you haven't done so, please hit the subscribe button and have your notifications on, because we can come on live at any time tomorrow covering everything in college football. So please subscribe, get yourself notified, and smash the like button if you've enjoyed our content tonight. If you haven't enjoyed it, hit the thumbs down button and let me know in the chat, or let me know on X at Flug Empire. Let me know how we can better serve you, the college football fanatic, the college football fan. I want to thank everybody for their incredible donations throughout the show. The unbelievable amount of gift memberships that were handed out today in the PATC community. Thank you so very much. Unbelievable. Thank you all. I think it's fantastic. Incredible generosity to other people in the PATC community. Thank you so very much. John Teal, Oregon State, Washington State, sell your soul to get to the ACC. It's all about timing there. When does the ACC implode? Does that timing help Oregon State or Washington State? Or is Oregon State, Washington State already going to be building up their new conference? Thank you for the super chat, John. Thank you for your continued generosity to this channel. But I want to thank everybody who's come on in. If you're just joining us, we can go back, watch the start of this live show. Dellinger dropped the bomb. Dellinger dropped the bomb. 14-team working model. 3 automatic bids to the Big Ten. 3 automatic bids to the SEC. 2 automatic bids to the Big 12, 2 automatic bids to the ACC, 1 automatic bid to the G5, 3 at-large bids. Thank you, Jamie Thornton, once again for another gift membership. Holy smokes. Second one of tonight. Thank you, Jamie. You are hereby Cloak and Dagger knighted again. You and your wife. I appreciate it so very much. And Replica, you were gifted a membership by Jamie Thornton. Replica, you are Cloak and Dagger knighted. Go check out the early Peak Cloak and Dagger episodes. There's a lot going on, and we're going to be covering it all here at Peek Around the Corner. So stick with us. Make sure you have your notifications open. I mean, we could be coming on live at 6 o'clock tomorrow morning. You have to keep your head on a swivel if you want to be a part of the PATC community. So thank you so very much. Until next time. From all of us at PATC to all of you, please, you all take great care of each other. Thank you so very much.